Van Losser naar
Lieutenant
Enschede.
Rodriguez, her second in command, snorted from his station. Ma'am, I'm getting some weird readings from their ships. They seem to be scanning us? Scanning us? Chen raised an eyebrow. Well, I hope they like what they see. I did put on my formal uniform today. The massive alien vessels, 7 of them, moved with an almost liquid grace through space. Their hulls shimmered with what appeared to be some kind of energy field, probably their version of shields. Show-offs. Commander, the communications officer called out. We're receiving a transmission. They're requesting permission to send a diplomatic party aboard. Chen tossed her empty jerky wrapper into a recycling unit. Well, would you look at that? They have manners. Tell them we'd be delighted to host them. And please, for the love of whatever they consider holy, nobody mention the time humanity nearly nuked itself over a Twitter argument. The alien delegation materialized on their ship 20 minutes later in what Chen had to admit was a pretty impressive display of teleportation technology. The beings before her stood nearly 8 feet tall, with iridescent scales and 4 arms each. Their leader, distinguished by elaborate markings across its scales, stepped forward with what appeared to be a scanning device. Greetings, representatives of Earth, the alien spoke through some sort of translator. I am High Overseer Zixatal of the Galactic Federation. We apologize for our thorough scanning, but we must classify all new species we encounter. Chen smiled diplomatically. No offense taken, though I should warn you, the last person who tried to classify me was my high school guidance counselor, and that didn't end well for either of us. The aliens continued their scans, their expressions becoming increasingly confused, if you could call the twitching of their head frills expressions. Zixatal consulted with his companions in hushed tones. This is most peculiar, the High Overseer finally said. According to our scans, your dental structure suggests a herbivorous species, yet we detected animal protein being consumed on your bridge moments ago and your atmospheric composition. The oxygen levels alone should have created an evolutionary path toward... Oh boy, Rodriguez muttered under his breath. Here we go. Chen's smile never wavered, though it took on a slightly predatory edge. High Overseer, I think there might be something you should know about humans. We're what you might call adaptable. Very adaptable. Those teeth you scanned, they're actually designed for an omnivorous diet. We eat pretty much anything we can digest, and sometimes things we probably shouldn't. The alien delegation's head frills all flattened simultaneously, apparently their equivalent of a collective gasp. Impossible, one of the junior delegates whispered. The classification system has never... Been wrong? Chen finished, pulling out another piece of jerky from her pocket and taking a deliberate bite. First time for everything, isn't there? Now, shall we discuss why you really came to our solar system? Because those aren't exactly diplomatic vessel configurations I'm seeing out there. The High Overseer's scales shifted color slightly, and Chen knew right then that humanity's first contact was about to go very, very wrong. She'd seen that look before. The look of...
Militaire gadgets veranderen de levenskwaliteit en uithoudingsvermogen van mensen. En zo werkt het. Dit is wat er gebeurt wanneer je...
Very wrong. She'd seen that look before. The look of someone who just realized they'd made a terrible miscalculation but was too proud to admit it. Lieutenant, she said quietly, sound general quarters and someone get me a coffee. I have a feeling this is going to be a long day. As the alarm began to blare throughout the ship, Chen couldn't help but wonder if other species had made the same mistake, assuming that flat teeth meant harmless. She was pretty sure they were about to learn just how wrong that assumption could be. The diplomatic chamber's tension could have been cut with a knife, though Commander Chen suspected the aliens would have classified knives as too aggressive for a supposedly herbivorous species. The High Overseer's scales had shifted to a deep purple, which she assumed wasn't their happy color. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, Chen said, drumming her fingers on the conference table. Your entire galactic society is based on a classification system that determines species' rights and privileges based on their biological characteristics. Precisely, Zixatal exclaimed, as if explaining something to a particularly slow child. It's brought peace to thousands of worlds. Species are assigned their proper place based on their natural capabilities. Predator species are carefully controlled, herbivorous species are protected and guided, and balanced species serve as mediators. Rodriguez coughed into his hand. And you just assumed we were herbivores because your dental structure, atmospheric composition, and planetary conditions all suggested a peaceful, grazing species. Another alien, who'd introduced himself as Scientific Overseer Krellman, pulled up a holographic display. You should have evolved into simple gatherers content to be guided by more advanced races. Chen exchanged glances with her officers. And now that you've discovered we're not quite what you expected. Now, Zixitel's translator crackled with what could only be described as condescension. We must consider containment protocols. The word hung in the air like a bad joke. Chen noticed the subtle shift in the alien guards' positions, the way their weapons, previously held ceremonially, had shifted to ready positions. Containment, Chen repeated flatly. You know, the last time someone tried to contain humanity, we invented nuclear weapons out of spite. Your resistance is anticipated but unnecessary, Krellman stated. The Federation's methods are quite thorough. Your ships are already disabled by our suppression fields and our forces are moving to secure your major population centers. Chen smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Are you sure about those suppression fields? The alien's confidence wavered for the first time as warning klaxons began blaring throughout their ship. Chen pulled up her own holographic display, showing the status of the human fleet. Fun fact about humans, she said conversationally, we have this thing called redundancy. When something critical might fail, we build backups. When those backups might fail, we build backups for the backups. And when someone tries to shut down our primary systems, she gestured to the display, where human ships were powering up on auxiliary systems that operated on completely different principles than their main power. Impossible, Krellman's scales paled. Your technology level shouldn't allow... Oh, that's not even the best part, Rodriguez interrupted. Tell them about the Marines, Commander. On cue, the ship shuddered as the first explosions rang out in the corridors. The alien guards turned, confused, as human Marines in powered armor burst through ventilation shafts they'd been quietly infiltrating during the entire conversation. You really should have checked those maintenance robots your scans detected more carefully, Chen said, standing up as her troops secured the room. We figured if you were scanning us, you might try something stupid, so we decided to plan for the worst. It's kind of our thing. Zixitel's composure finally cracked. This defies all classification protocols. Your species cannot be this advanced, this prepared. The system has never failed. Here's the thing about humans, Chen said, walking around the table to face the now restrained High Overseer. We don't like being put in boxes. We don't like being classified. And we really, really don't like being threatened. Your Federation made 3 crucial mistakes today. You underestimated us, you threatened us, and worst of all, you gave us advance warning by being really, really bad at hiding your intentions. Outside the viewports, the space battle had begun in earnest. Human ships operating on their backup systems were proving far more resilient than the Federation forces had anticipated. The elegant alien vessels found their energy weapons significantly less effective against human ships that had been designed with the assumption that someone would eventually try to shoot at them. Consider this a diplomatic response to your containment protocols, Chen announced to the stunned alien leadership. And trust me when I say this is us being nice. You really don't want to see us when we're actually trying to be difficult. As if to emphasize her point, another human vessel emerged from FTL jump right through one of the Federation's supposedly impenetrable shield barriers, proving that humanity's understanding of physics had taken some interesting turns that the aliens' classification system hadn't accounted for. Now then, Chen sat back down, propping her feet up on the conference table. Let's discuss the terms of your unconditional surrender, shall we? The United Nations emergency session looked more like a rock concert mosh pit than a diplomatic gathering. Representatives from every nation crammed into the General Assembly Hall, their usual political rivalries forgotten in the face of an alien federation that wanted to contain humanity. Let me get this straight, the Russian delegate said, rubbing his temples. They thought we were space cows? Commander Chen, now addressing the emergency session, couldn't help but grin. More or less.
On the wedding night, this woman deliberately causes trouble for her husband, saying that he can only sleep with her if he can spread her legs. The wife smiles slyly. The husband tries his best.
More or less. Their entire society is based on classifying species. They took one look at our teeth and oxygen-rich atmosphere and decided we must be peaceful grazers in need of guidance. Well, the Chinese representative chuckled darkly, I suppose we should show them how space cows really behave. The assembly erupted in a mix of laughter and determined murmurs. The Brazilian delegate stood up. We've spent centuries fighting each other. Perhaps it's time we showed the galaxy what happens when humanity fights together. And just like that, the Emergency Earth Defense Coalition was born. Politicians who had been at each other's throats weeks ago now worked side by side, pooling resources and technology. It turned out nothing united humanity quite like a common enemy who thought they were collectively stupid space herbivores. At Area 51, which, as it turned out, really was full of experimental technology, Project Prometheus took shape. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, head of the project, stood before a holographic display showing their latest developments. The Federation's biggest weakness, she explained to the Joint Military Command, is their rigid thinking. They've classified every species, every technology, every tactic. They literally cannot comprehend anything that falls outside their established parameters. She pulled up footage of the first battle. See how they responded when we used our backup systems. Total confusion. They're like chess players who've suddenly discovered their opponent is playing three-dimensional chess while kickboxing. The new hybrid warfare tactics that emerged were a thing of beauty. Traditional military strategies were combined with approaches that would make any conventional commander have an aneurysm. Space battles became a mixture of high-tech warfare and what could only be described as weaponized chaos. You did what? High Admiral Zhang asked during one particularly memorable briefing. Lieutenant Commander Jackson beamed proudly. We filled defunct satellites with glitter, sir. When their energy weapons hit them, the particles scattered their targeting systems. Turns out their advanced sensors can't handle a disco ball explosion. The Federation's response to these tactics was to send observation teams to Earth to better understand their opponent. This proved to be their next major mistake. The alien observers arrived expecting to find a peaceful world that had somehow developed unusual defensive capabilities.